The Battle of Zerion 7 began at 0347 hours Galactic Standard Time, when War Empress Zethara herself arrived with the largest fleet the Kraxan Empire had ever assembled. 837 ships, including the massive fortress ship, Eternal Dominion, dropped out of hyperspace to find 50 human vessels waiting for them. From her command throne aboard the flagship, Zethara studied the tactical display with cold satisfaction. She was 4 meters tall, covered in natural armor plating that bore the scars of 100 campaigns. For 40 years, she had ruled the Empire with an iron fist, destroying any species that dared to resist her will. "These humans have caused enough trouble," she announced to her bridge crew. "Today we end their interference permanently." Captain Mincio watched the massive Kraxan fleet arrange itself for battle and felt her stomach tighten. Her 50 ships were outnumbered 16-1, and half of them were loaded with rescued slaves who could not be evacuated in time. "Captain," her tactical officer said quietly, "the enemy fleet is taking standard battle formation. They appear confident of victory." "They should be," Mincio replied. "Signal all ships. Remember, our job is to buy time. Admiral Deho is 18 hours away. If we can hold them that long, the refugees will live." "And if we cannot?" Mincio looked at her bridge crew. They were young men and women who had volunteered to cross the galaxy to fight for strangers. They knew the odds as well as she did. "Then we make them pay such a price that they will remember us forever," she said. The first shots came from the Kraxan heavy cruisers, massive beams of energy that could destroy cities. But the human ships did not meet them head-on like other species would. Instead, they scattered like leaves before a storm, using their superior speed and maneuverability to avoid the incoming fire. Captain Taehyun's destroyer Lightning Strike rolled between 2 energy beams, its hull temperature rising dangerously as the weapons passed within meters of its armor. A second later, it fired back with kinetic kill weapons, sending chunks of metal at near-light speed toward the Kraxan battle line. One heavy cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. Then another. "Impossible," War Empress Zethara snarled. "How can such small ships carry such powerful weapons?" "The humans appear to have focused on mobility and firepower rather than armor," her tactical advisor replied. "Their weapons are more advanced than our intelligence predicted." "Then we will overwhelm them with numbers," Zethara decided. "All ships, advance and engage. Destroy everything that moves." But the humans were not fighting a conventional battle. They were fighting like the predators they were. Captain Junwoo's marine assault ships launched boarding pods toward the smaller Kraxan vessels, while Captain Yujin's special forces used stealth technology to infiltrate enemy communications networks. The battle became a 3-dimensional nightmare for the Kraxan commanders, with attacks coming from every direction at once. The human ships moved like a pack of wolves, coordinating their attacks with precision that no alien species had ever achieved. When one ship was damaged, others covered its retreat. When an enemy ship was weakened, multiple human vessels converged to finish it off. For 6 hours, the battle raged across the Zerion system. The humans fought with desperate courage, knowing that millions of lives depended on their ability to hold the line. They used every trick they had learned, every tactical innovation they had developed, every advantage their technology could provide. But slowly, inevitably, the odds began to tell. "Sir," Captain Minceo's tactical officer reported, "we have lost 8 ships. The remainder are all showing battle damage. We cannot hold much longer." Mincio looked at her tactical display. Her remaining ships were scattered across the system, outnumbered and outgunned. The rescued slaves were still loading onto evacuation transports, but the process was taking too long. "Signal Admiral Deho," she ordered. "Tell him we need those reinforcements now." But Admiral Deho was still 12 hours away, pushing his engines beyond their safety limits in a desperate race to reach his trapped forces. "All ships maximum burn," he ordered for the 5th time in 2 hours. "I do not care if we burn out every engine in the fleet, our people are dying." Captain Hyejin looked at the engineering reports scrolling across her screen. "Sir, we are already exceeding safe engine parameters. If we push any harder, ships will start breaking apart. Then we break apart, Admiral Deho said grimly. Better to arrive damaged than not to arrive at all. Back at Zarian 7th, the situation was becoming desperate. Captain Minseo's flagship had taken heavy damage, and her remaining ships were running low on ammunition and power. The Kraxan fleet was closing in for the kill, but then something unexpected happened. The rescued slaves, who had been huddled in terror aboard the evacuation ships, began to act. Veltara, the elderly Centaurian who had spent 22 years in bondage, stood up in the crowded transport ship and looked around at her fellow refugees. "The humans are dying for us," she said simply. "They came across the galaxy to free us, and now they are sacrificing their lives to keep us safe. We cannot just hide while they fight." "But what can we do?" asked Gorthek, the massive Rigelian. "We are not warriors. We are broken slaves." "No," Veltara replied, her voice growing stronger. "We are survivors. We are the ones who lived when our worlds died. We are the ones who endured when others gave up. And we know things about Kraxan ships that the humans do not." Within minutes, volunteers from a dozen species were working with human technical teams to modify the evacuation ships. They knew the weaknesses of Kraxan technology because they had been forced to build and maintain it for decades. "Their shield generators have a feedback vulnerability," explained Koltar, a former Talnari engineer. "If you hit them with modulated pulse weapons at exactly the right frequency, the shields will collapse. Their weapon systems overheat if fired continuously for more than 4 minutes," added Marzeth, who had worked in a Kraxan armory for 15 years. "If you can force them to maintain fire, they will have to shut down to cool their systems." The information spread through the human fleet like wildfire. Suddenly, Captain Minseo's battered ships had new tactics to use against their overwhelming enemies. Captain Yunji's fighter squadron used the shield frequency data to penetrate Kraxan defenses that had seemed impenetrable. Captain Taehyun's destroyers forced enemy cruisers to overheat their weapons, then struck during the cooling periods. The tide of battle began to shift. War Empress Zethara watched her tactical display with growing fury. "How are they doing this? How can 50 ships hold against our entire fleet? The enemy appears to have detailed knowledge of our ship systems," her tactical advisor reported nervously. "They are exploiting weaknesses that should not be known to any outside species." "Then we will end this with brute force," Zethara declared. "All ships concentrate fire on their flagship, kill their leader, and they will surrender." Every weapon in the Kraxan fleet turned toward Captain Minseo's damaged ship. The firepower was so intense that space itself seemed to burn. No ship could survive such focused destruction. But Captain Minseo was not planning to survive. "All hands abandon ship," she ordered calmly. "Evacuation pods away, set the reactor for overload." "Captain," her tactical officer protested, "you cannot mean to—" "I mean exactly that," Minseo replied. "Signal the fleet. Tell them it has been an honor to serve with them." The human flagship accelerated directly toward War Empress Zethara's massive fortress ship, its reactor building toward critical overload. The Kraxans poured fire into the approaching vessel, but it continued forward like an arrow shot from the bow of an angry god. At the last moment, just as the ship reached the point of no return, rescue pods launched from its sides. Captain Minseo and her crew had timed their escape perfectly. The explosion of the human flagship's reactor lit up the entire star system. When the light faded, War Empress Zethara's fortress ship was gone, along with 47 other Kraxan vessels caught in the blast radius. "The Empress is dead," whispered the Kraxan communications officer aboard one of the surviving ships. "Eternal Dominion is destroyed." For the first time in over a century, the Kraxan Empire was without a leader. The remaining Kraxan ships began to retreat in disorder, their commanders uncertain and afraid. Some tried to continue the attack, but without central coordination, they were picked off by the surviving human vessels and their rescued slave allies. That was when Admiral Deho arrived. The human reinforcement fleet dropped out of hyperspace like the wrath of heaven itself. 350 ships, their engines glowing white-hot from the desperate journey across space. "This is Admiral Deho to all Kraxan vessels," he broadcast on all frequencies. Your empress is dead. Your fleet is broken. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the rules of war. Continue fighting and face total destruction. The response came from Admiral Crescital, the senior surviving Kraxan commander. We are warriors of the Empire. We do not surrender to inferior species. Then you die as warriors. Admiral Deho replied sadly. All ships, engage the enemy. Show no mercy to those who show none. The final battle of the Kraxan War lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the empire that had terrorized the galaxy for over a century no longer existed as a military force. In the weeks that followed, human ships spread across former Kraxan T. The slave camp on Zerion 7 had been operating for 37 years. Built in the crater of an extinct volcano, it held over 200,000 prisoners from 16 different species that the Kraxan Empire had destroyed. They worked 18 hours a day in the weapons factories, building the guns and missiles that the Empire used to conquer new worlds. Most of the slaves had given up hope long ago. They worked, they ate their meager rations, they slept, and they died. It was all they had known for decades, but today was different. Today, whispers were spreading through the barracks like wildfire. The humans destroyed another Kraxan fleet, said Veltara, an elderly Centaurian who had been a prisoner for 22 years. Over 80 ships this time. Impossible, replied Gorthek, a massive Regelian who had once been a warrior before. His people were enslaved. No one defeats the Empire in open battle. The communications are real, Veltara insisted. I heard them myself on the hidden receiver. These humans have now won 3 major battles. They are coming to liberate us. Around them, aliens from a dozen different worlds listened with growing excitement. For the first time in decades, they dared to hope. But hope was a dangerous thing in a slave camp. Attention, prisoners, announced the voice of Camp Commander Drexnall over the loudspeakers. Any slave caught spreading rumors about enemy forces will be executed immediately. Return to your workstations. The slaves dispersed quickly, but the whispers continued. Hope, once awakened, was impossible to kill completely. Meanwhile, on the human flagship, Admiral Deho was planning the most ambitious military operation in galactic history. Intelligence reports indicated that the Kraxan Empire had over 50 slave worlds scattered across their territory, holding an estimated 40 million prisoners. We cannot free them all at once, Captain Hyojin said as she studied the tactical displays. Our fleet would have to split into dozens of small groups. We would be vulnerable to counterattack. Then we prioritize, Admiral Deho replied. Which camps hold the most prisoners? Which worlds have the most strategic importance? Captain Yujin, who commanded the human special forces, pointed to a star system on the edge of Kraxan space. Zerion 7th has the largest concentration of slaves, over 200,000 in a single location. If we can liberate them, it would be a major propaganda victory. What are the defenses? Asked Captain Junwoo. Moderate, Yujin replied. 23 ships in orbit, plus ground-based planetary shields and defense batteries. The real problem is getting the slaves off the planet safely. Admiral Deho studied the intelligence reports for several minutes. The liberation of Zerion 7 would require splitting his fleet and leaving other operations uncovered. But 40 million slaves were counting on humanity to keep its promises. We'd do it, he decided. Captain Minseo, take 50 ships and hit Zerion 7. The rest of the fleet will continue toward Kraxan Prime. Sir, Captain Hyojin said carefully. Dividing our forces this close to their home system is extremely risky. If they concentrate their remaining fleets, then we will face that problem when it comes, Admiral Deho replied. We did not come this far to abandon innocent people when they need us most. Captain Minseo's task force reached Zerion 7 after 3 days of hard flying through hyperspace. The Kraxan defenders were expecting an attack, but they were not expecting the fury that the humans brought with them. The orbital battle lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, 21 Kraxan ships were floating dead in space, and the remaining 2 had surrendered. The planetary shields were down, and Captain Junwoo's Marines were preparing for the largest rescue operation in human history. But liberating a slave camp was very different from fighting ships in space. The Kraxan guards had taken positions throughout the industrial complex, using the slave barracks as cover. They knew that the humans would not fire on buildings full of prisoners, so they made their defensive positions among the people they had tormented for decades. "This is Captain Junwoo to all Marine units," he broadcast as his troops landed around the camp. "Remember, our primary mission is to save lives, not take them. Use minimum necessary force. Protect the prisoners at all costs." The battle for the slave camp was brutal and personal. Human Marines moved through the industrial complex building by building, room by room, freeing prisoners and fighting Kraxan guards in close combat. Sergeant Quan Su led his squad through the eastern barracks, where hundreds of aliens cowered in fear. Many of the prisoners had never seen a human before, and they were terrified of these new warriors with their advanced weapons and armor. "It is okay," he told them through his suit's translator. "We are here to help you. Follow me to the evacuation point." But as his squad moved toward the exit, they ran into a group of Kraxan guards who had taken defensive positions at a checkpoint. "Human soldiers," called out the lead guard, a scarred veteran named Krexnal. "We have prisoners here. If you attack, they will die." Behind the guards, Quan Su could see a dozen alien civilians being held at gunpoint. They were clearly terrified, their eyes wide with fear. "Release the prisoners and you will be treated according to the rules of war," Quan Su replied. "Continue to threaten innocent people and face the consequences." "The Empire does not surrender to inferior species," Krexnal snarled. "These slaves belong to us. They will die before we let you take them." What happened next became legend among both humans and aliens throughout the galaxy. Sergeant Quan Su did not hesitate, did not calculate odds, did not consider his own safety. He simply moved forward at impossible speed, his enhanced reflexes and training allowing him to cover the distance between his position and the guards in seconds. The Kraxan guards opened fire, but their weapons were designed for intimidation rather than precision. Human armor could absorb their shots long enough for a trained Marine to reach them. Quan Su's squad followed him into the melee, and the fight was over in moments. 12 prisoners were freed, and the guards were disarmed and secured. "Are you hurt?" Quan Su asked the freed slaves, switching his helmet translator to their language. An elderly Talnari female looked up at him with amazement. You risked your life for us. But we are nothing to you. We are not even the same species." "That does not matter," Quan Su replied simply. "Life is life. Freedom is freedom. No one deserves to be a slave." Similar scenes were playing out throughout the camp as human Marines freed prisoners and fought guards who would rather kill their captives than lose them. The humans moved with a precision and determination that amazed the aliens they were rescuing. Dr. Sang-wook and his medical teams were working frantically to treat the rescued prisoners. Many were suffering from malnutrition, disease, and injuries from years of abuse. The human medical ships had been converted into floating hospitals, with staff working around the clock to save lives. "How many casualties?" Captain Minseo asked, as she toured one of the medical ships. "Among the humans, surprisingly light," Dr. Sang-wook replied. 47 wounded, 3 seriously. But the slaves, many of them are in terrible condition. We estimate that 10% may not survive despite our best efforts." "What about the total count?" "We have evacuated 196,000 prisoners so far," the doctor said. "That leaves maybe 4,000 still unaccounted for. Then we keep looking until we find them all," Minseo said firmly. The liberation of Zarian 7 took 8 days. When it was finished, over 200,000 slaves from 16 different species had been freed from bondage. The human fleet had converted cargo ships, passenger liners, even warships into temporary shelters for the rescued prisoners. But the cost had been higher than anyone anticipated. "Captain," reported the intelligence officer aboard Minseo's flagship, "we are receiving urgent communications from Admiral Daeho. The Kraxan Empire has assembled their main battle fleet. Over 800 ships are moving toward our position." Minseo looked at her tactical display. Her task force had 50 ships, many of them loaded with rescued slaves. The main human fleet was 3 days away, dealing with other liberation operations across cracks in space. "Sir," her tactical officer said quietly, "we cannot fight 800 ships with what we have here. We should retreat immediately." Mincio looked out at the ships full of freed slaves. These people had waited decades for rescue. They had watched their children grow up in bondage, seen their friends die in the factories, lost all hope of ever seeing freedom. "Signal the fleet," she said finally. "All ships, prepare for battle. We are not running away." "Sir, with respect, that would be suicide." "Maybe," Mincio agreed. "But these people trusted us to keep them safe. We are not going to abandon them now." The largest space battle in galactic history was about to begin. On one side, 50 human ships carrying 200,000 freed slaves. On the other, 800 Kraxan warships determined to recapture their property and destroy the humans who had dared to challenge the Empire. But somewhere in the darkness of space, Admiral Deho was racing toward Xerion 7 with the rest of the human fleet. He had received Minceo's last transmission and he knew what it meant. "All ships, maximum speed," he ordered. "Our people are in trouble." Captain He Jin looked at the tactical projections. "Sir, even at fuel." War Commander Thexral had commanded the Kraxan Third Fleet for 15 years. He had destroyed 6 species and conquered 23 worlds. He had never retreated from a battle, never shown mercy to an enemy, and never doubted the superiority of the Empire. Until today. The message from Vextar's fleeing ships made no sense. How could 63 Kraxan warships be defeated by an unknown species? How could the Empire's finest commander be forced to retreat? It had to be a mistake, or perhaps cowardice on Vextar's part. "Helm! Maximum speed to the Villani system," Thexral ordered from the bridge of his flagship World Killer. "We will show these humans what real Kraxan warriors can do." His fleet was impressive. 87 ships, including 12 heavy cruisers, and the massive dreadnought that served as his flagship. It was enough firepower to destroy a small civilization, and Thexral intended to use every bit of it. "Sir," reported his intelligence officer, "we are receiving long-range sensor data from the battle site. The human fleet appears to have over 400 ships. Numbers mean nothing," Thexral replied confidently. "The Empire has faced larger fleets before. We will crush them with superior firepower and tactics." But as his fleet approached the Villani system, Thexral began to receive more detailed reports from the survivors of Vextar's fleet. The humans did not fight like any species the Empire had encountered. They used weapons that ignored shields, moved faster than should be possible, and struck from multiple directions at once. "Perhaps we should request additional reinforcements," suggested his tactical officer nervously. "No," Thexral said firmly. "The High Command is watching. If I retreat without firing a shot, they will have me executed for cowardice. We attack immediately." The human fleet was waiting for them when they dropped out of hyperspace. Admiral Deho had used the time since the first battle to study the Kraxan ships and plan his strategy. He knew that word of the human victory was spreading across the galaxy, and he needed to make this second victory even more decisive. "Captain He Jin," he said to his intelligence officer, "what do we know about this new Kraxan commander?" "Thexral is considered one of their best tacticians," she replied, reading from her datapad. "He prefers massed frontal assaults and has never been defeated in battle." "Then he is about to learn something new," Admiral Deho said. "Signal the fleet. Execute Plan Thunderstorm." Plan Thunderstorm was something that no alien species had ever seen before. Instead of meeting the enemy in a single large battle, the human fleet would split into dozens of small groups, each one operating independently, but working toward the same goal. Captain Mincio's stealth squadron was already in position around the Kraxan fleet, invisible to their sensors. Captain Yunji's fighters were scattered throughout the system, waiting for the signal to attack. Captain Taehyun's destroyers were hidden behind asteroids and space debris. "All units, this is Admiral Deho," he broadcast on a secure channel. "The enemy has arrived. They outnumber us in individual ship firepower, but they think like bullies. Show them what happens when bullies meet predators. Thexral arranged his fleet in the traditional Kraxon battle formation. Heavy ships in the bow, center lighter vessels on the flanks with his flagship commanding from the rear. It was a formation that had worked for over a century of conquest. Open fire on their command ship, he ordered. Once their leader is dead, the rest will surrender. 87 Kraxon ships opened fire simultaneously, sending enough energy to destroy a moon toward Admiral Deho's flagship. But when the weapons reached their target, nothing was there. The human command ship had moved the instant the Kraxons began firing, accelerating at speeds that should have killed its crew. The alien weapons passed harmlessly through empty space. Impossible, Thexral breathed. No ship that large can move that fast. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we are detecting multiple human squadrons moving to attack positions. They appear to be surrounding us. Let them come, Thexral replied. We will destroy them one by one. But the humans did not attack one by one. They attacked from everywhere at once. Captain Minseo's stealth destroyers appeared behind the Kraxon heavy cruisers and opened fire with kinetic kill weapons. 3 massive alien ships exploded before they knew they were under attack. Captain Yunji's fighters swarmed the Kraxon destroyer screen, their small size and incredible speed making them nearly impossible to hit. They fired missiles that could think for themselves, seeking out the most vulnerable parts of enemy ships. Captain Taehyun's destroyers emerged from behind asteroids and began a high-speed attack run on the Kraxon flanks. They moved like wolves hunting prey, coordinating their attacks with precision that no alien species had ever achieved. And through it all, Admiral Deho's flagship and the other human capital ships provided covering fire, their advanced weapon systems picking off any Kraxon vessel that tried to escape the chaos. Status report, Thexral shouted over the alarms that were screaming throughout his ship. We have lost 23 ships in the first 10 minutes, his tactical officer replied, his voice shaking with fear. The humans are attacking us from 12 different directions simultaneously. How is that possible? No species can coordinate that many independent actions. But humans could, because humans had learned warfare on a world that tried to kill them every day. They had developed tactics that relied on individual initiative, flexible thinking, and the ability to adapt to changing situations instantly. The battle raged for 2 hours. The Kraxons fought bravely, but they were fighting an enemy that had studied them for years. Every Kraxon weakness had been identified and exploited. Every Kraxon strength had been turned against them. Captain, Junwoo's Marines boarded 3 Kraxon cruisers during the battle, fighting hand-to-hand combat in the corridors of enemy ships. The Kraxons were larger and stronger, but they had never faced opponents who could think faster and move more efficiently in close quarters. This is impossible, gasped a wounded Kraxon officer as Junwoo's team secured his ship. How can creatures so small fight so effectively? Because, Junwoo replied as he applied medical aid to the aliens' wounds. We come from a world where everything was bigger and stronger than us. We learned to be smarter and faster instead. By the end of the battle, the Kraxon Third Fleet no longer existed as a fighting force. 56 ships had been destroyed outright. 27 more were so badly damaged that they were floating helplessly in space. Only 4 ships managed to escape to hyperspace, carrying news of the second human victory. War Commander Thexral was found unconscious on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by the wreckage of his command crew. When he woke up in the medical bay of a human ship, he could not believe he was still alive. Why did you not kill me? He asked Dr. Sang-wook, who was treating his injuries. Because humans do not kill prisoners, the doctor replied. You will be held for trial, but you will be treated according to the rules of civilized warfare. Civilized? Thexral laughed bitterly. You destroyed my entire fleet in 2 hours. You are the most dangerous species I have ever encountered. Yes, Dr. Sang-wook agreed. We are very dangerous to those who prey on the innocent, but we are healers to those who need help, and protectors to those who cannot protect themselves. The news of the second human victory spread across the galaxy even faster than the first. Species that had hidden from the Kraxon Empire for generations suddenly realized that the invincible conquerors could be defeated. On the world of Centauri, Prime, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. Council leader Mordeth called for order as representatives from 200 species debated frantically. The humans have now destroyed over 150 Kraxan ships, he announced. They appear to be from a species that has never been catalogued by the Council. Where do they come from? Demanded the representative from the Silicon Collective. Unknown, Mordeth replied. They claim to be from worlds beyond the galactic rim. What we do know is that they possess military technology superior to anything in our database. What are their intentions? Asked the Aquatic Federation representative. They claim to be fighting to protect innocent species from Kraxan aggression, Mordeth said carefully. However, any species capable of such military prowess must be considered extremely dangerous. We must determine whether we are witnessing the liberation of the galaxy or simply the rise of a new conqueror. But on worlds that had suffered under Kraxan rule, the reaction was very different. On Nexus Beta, where Kraxan slave camps held millions of prisoners from a dozen species, the news of human victories was spreading through secret communication networks. The humans defeated another Kraxan fleet, whispered Koltar, a survivor of the destroyed Talnari civilization. Maybe they really mean to free us. Do not hope too much, replied his friend Marseth, who had been a slave for 20 years. Others have tried to fight the Empire before. They all failed in the end. But none of them won 2 battles in 3 days, Koltar pointed out. Maybe these humans are different. On his flagship, Admiral Deho was receiving reports from across his fleet. The second battle had cost them more than the first, 12 ships damaged and over 300 casualties, but it had been another decisive victory. Sir, Captain Hyogen reported, we are receiving communications from across the galaxy. 17 species have offer. The space around the dying Vellani homeworld had been quiet for 6 days. Ambassador Thelnara thought the silence meant that death was finally coming for her people. The few remaining Vellani ships drifted powerlessly in space, their engines cold and their hulls cracked from Kraxan weapons. Then the stars began to explode. That was what it looked like to Thelnara when the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. Hundreds of bright flashes appeared in the darkness, and from each flash came a ship unlike anything she had ever seen. They were dark and predatory, built for killing rather than exploring. By the ancestors, whispered her communications officer. How many are there? Thelnara counted the ships appearing on her sensors. 10, 20, 50, 100. They kept coming until her screen was filled with contacts. 412 ships, she said quietly. Someone actually came. The Yao lead ship was massive, bristling with weapon turrets and sensor arrays. As she watched, a communication request appeared on her console. Thelnara accepted it with trembling fingers. The face that appeared on her screen made her gasp. The creature had forward-facing eyes like a hunter, pale skin, and short dark hair. It was clearly an apex predator, but its expression was calm and professional. This is Fleet Admiral Deho of the Terran Colonial Defense Force, the alien said. We received your distress call. We are here to help. Thelnara found her voice. You actually came, but who are you? What species are you? We are humans, Admiral Deho replied. We come from a world called Earth far beyond the galactic rim. Our colonies heard your message and decided to act. But why? Thelnara asked. You do not know us. We have nothing to offer you. The human's expression softened slightly. Ambassador, humans have learned that evil spreads when good people do nothing. We will not do nothing. Before Thelnara could reply, alarms began screaming throughout her ship. Her sensor officer looked up from his console with terror in his eyes. Ambassador, Kraxan ships are approaching. 63 vessels including War Commander Vextar's flagship. On the bridge of his flagship Deathbringer, War Commander Vexitar was studying the sensor readings with growing amazement. He had been conquering species for 40 years, and he had never seen so many ships appear so suddenly. What are those? Vessels? He demanded of his intelligence officer. Unknown design, Commander, replied Captain Gorthak, a scarred veteran of dozens of campaigns. They do not match any species in our database. The power readings suggest they are heavily armed. Interesting, Vexter said. He was a massive creature, even by Kraxan standards, with natural armor plating and scars from 100 battles. Open communications. Let us see who dares to interfere with the Empire. The image of Admiral Deho appeared on the Kraxan bridge. Vextar studied the alien face with professional interest. This creature looked dangerous, which was good. The Kraxans respected dangerous enemies more than weak ones. "I am War Commander Vextar of the Kraxan Empire," he announced. "You have entered territory claimed by the Empire. State your purpose, or be destroyed." Admiral Deho's expression did not change. "We are here to protect the Vellani people. Withdraw your forces immediately." Vextar laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "The Vellani are cattle fit only for slaughter. We have destroyed 27 species stronger than them. What makes you think your fleet can stop us?" "Because," Admiral Deho said calmly, "you have never fought humans before." The communication ended. Vextar turned to his tactical officer. "How many ships do they have?" 412, Commander," came the reply. "We have 63 ships here, but the third fleet will arrive in 4 hours with 80 more vessels." "Then we wait for reinforcements," Vextar decided. "When they arrive, we will crush these humans and add their technology to the Empire." But as the Kraxan commander watched the human fleet, he began to notice something strange. Instead of forming the traditional battle lines that every civilized species used, the human ships were spreading out into small groups. Some were moving toward his fleet, while others were heading in completely different directions. "What are they doing?" he muttered to himself. On the human flagship, Admiral Deho was coordinating the most complex battle plan his species had ever attempted. Unlike other species, humans had learned warfare on a world where everything was trying to kill them. They did not fight fair. They fought to win. "Captain Minseo," he said to the commander of his stealth squadron, "take your ships and eliminate their supply vessels. I want them cut off from reinforcements." "Already on it, sir," Minseo replied from her invisible destroyer. Her ships were using technology that made them almost undetectable to enemy sensors. "We have identified 3 supply ships and 2 communication relays. They will be gone in 10 minutes. Captain Unji, launch all fighters. I want them to think we are making a conventional attack." 300 human fighters poured out of their carriers like angry wasps. They were smaller and faster than Kraxan fighters, with pilots who had trained for this moment their entire lives. "Captain Junwoo, prepare your Marines for boarding. Actions, we are going to take some prisoners." "Marines are locked and loaded, sir," came the reply. "We are ready to show the Kraxans what human ground combat looks like." War Commander Vextar watched the human fighters approach and felt confident. He had dealt with fighter attacks before. "Launch all interceptors," he ordered. "Show these aliens the superiority of Kraxan technology." The first engagement between human and Kraxan forces lasted exactly 3 minutes and 17 seconds. When it was over, the humans had lost 4 fighters. The Kraxans had lost 32. "How is that possible?" Vextar demanded. "Our fighters are superior in every way. The human craft are more maneuverable than our projections indicated," reported his tactical officer. "They seem to be designed for speed and agility, rather than armor and firepower." "Then we will overwhelm them with our capital ships," Vextar decided. "All vessels, advance and engage. Destroy everything that moves." The Kraxan fleet moved forward in the traditional battle formation that had served the Empire for over a century. Heavy cruisers in the center, destroyers on the flanks, with the flagship commanding from behind. It was a formation designed to maximize firepower and intimidate enemies. It was also exactly what the humans had expected. Captain Tae-hyun commanded a squadron of human destroyers that had been waiting in the shadow of a dead moon. As the Kraxan fleet advanced, his ships moved into position behind them. "All ships, this is Tae-hyun," he broadcast to his squadron. "Remember, we are not here to trade shots with them. We are here to end this quickly. Target their engines first, then their weapons." The human destroyers opened fire with weapons the Kraxans had never seen before. Instead of energy beams or missiles, they used kinetic kill vehicles. Chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. When they hit, they released the energy of small nuclear weapons. 3 Kraxan cruisers disappeared in balls of fire. "What was that?" Vextar shouted at his bridge crew. Unknown weapon type, his science officer replied, his voice shaking. It appears to be some kind of kinetic projectile. Our shields had no effect against it. Before Vextar could respond, more explosions lit up the darkness. Captain Minsio's stealth ships had found their targets. The Kraxan supply vessels were gone, along with their communication relays. The Empire's forces were now cut off from reinforcements and command. "Sir," reported the tactical officer, "we have lost contact with the supply fleet and the Third Fleet. We are on our own." Vextar felt something he had never experienced in 40 years of conquest: doubt. These humans fought unlike any species he had encountered. Instead of meeting him head-on in glorious battle, they struck from the shadows and disappeared before he could respond. "All ships concentrate fire on their flagship," he ordered. "Kill their commander and they will surrender." 60 Kraxan ships turned their weapons toward Admiral Deho's vessel. Energy beams powerful enough to destroy cities reached out across space, seeking to vaporize the human command ship. But Admiral Deho was not there anymore. His flagship had moved the moment the Kraxans began their attack, using engines more powerful than anything the aliens had ever seen. The massive vessel rolled and twisted through space like a fighter, avoiding the incoming fire with impossible grace. "Return fire," Deho ordered calmly. The human flagship was armed with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever created: particle beams that could punch through any armor, missiles that could think for themselves, and the dreaded kinetic kill weapons that the Kraxans were learning to fear. War Commander Vextar's flagship Deathbringer shook as human weapons found their mark. Systems failed throughout the ship as the alien technology proved superior to everything the Empire had built. "Damage report," he demanded. "We have lost main engines and 40% of our weapons," his engineering officer replied. "Hull breaches on multiple decks. We are venting atmosphere." Around them, the Kraxan fleet was falling apart. Human ships appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating precision, and vanished before the aliens could respond. It was not a battle. It was a slaughter. "Sir," his communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving surrender requests from—" The message from Admiral Deho reached the mining station at New Incheon, while Supervisor Minho was having his morning coffee. He was a big man with scarred hands from 20 years of working with heavy machinery. When he read the mobilization order, he set down his cup and smiled. "Finally," he said to himself. "Finally, we get to use them." For 3 years, Minho and his crew had been doing more than mining asteroids. Hidden inside the biggest rocks, they had been building something that no alien species had ever seen before. Now it was time to show the galaxy what human engineering could do. "Attention all workers," Minho announced over the station's speakers. "Operation Righteous Fury is now active. Open the hidden bays. Launch everything we have." Across the asteroid belt, chunks of rock began to split open like eggs. From inside them came ships that looked like they had been designed by demons. They were black and angular, covered with weapon turrets and sensor arrays. These were not exploration ships or cargo haulers. These were instruments of war. The biggest ship was 800 meters long and bristled with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Minho had named it Iron Fist after his grandfather's favorite saying, "Sometimes the only language bullies understand is the Iron Fist." Captain Yunji was waiting on the bridge of Iron Fist when Minho arrived. She was a small woman who had once been a test pilot for experimental fighters. Now she commanded humanity's most powerful weapon. "Status report," Minho said as he took the captain's chair. "All systems green," Yunji replied. "We have full power, full weapons load, and a crew that is ready to make the Kraxans sorry they were ever born." Around them, 23 other warships were emerging from their hiding places. Destroyers, cruisers, and assault ships that had been built in secret over the past 5 years. The human colonies had been preparing for war since the day they left Earth. Meanwhile, on the agricultural world of New Jeju, Captain Boram was converting her cargo fleet into troop transports. Her ships normally carried grain and vegetables to the other colonies. Today, they would carry something much more dangerous. "How many Marines can we fit on each ship?" she asked her chief engineer. If we strip out the cargo holds and install life support systems, maybe 200 per ship, he replied. It will not be comfortable, but it will work. Comfort is not important, Boram said. Speed is. The Villani do not have time for us to be comfortable. She looked out at her fleet of converted freighters. They were not pretty, and they were not fast, but they were big enough to carry the human army across the galaxy. Sometimes that was all you needed. On the industrial world of New Ulsan, Dr. Sang-wook was preparing his medical teams for the largest rescue operation in galactic history. As the head of Colonial Medical Services, he knew that war meant wounded people, lots of them. We need to prepare for alien physiology, he told his staff. The Villani are not human. Their bodies work differently than ours. We need to learn how to treat them quickly. His medical ships were loading supplies for 1,000 different medical emergencies. Surgical equipment, medicines, even entire mobile hospitals that could be set up on any world. If the humans were going to save the Villani, they needed to be ready for anything. But the most important work was happening on New Daegu, where Captain Yu-jin was training her special forces for a mission unlike anything they had ever attempted. These were not ordinary soldiers. They were the elite of the human military, trained to fight in the most dangerous environments in the galaxy. Listen carefully, she told her teams as they gathered in the briefing room. The Kraxans have been conquering species for over a century. They think they know everything about warfare. They are wrong. They have never fought humans before. On the main screen, she showed them intelligence reports about Kraxan tactics. They rely on superior numbers and firepower. They expect their enemies to line up and fight fair. We are not going to fight fair. We are going to fight to win. The Special Forces teams nodded. These were men and women who had volunteered for the most dangerous missions in human space. They had trained in zero gravity, toxic atmospheres, and combat situations that would kill ordinary soldiers. Now they would use that training to free an entire species. Across human space, the same scene was playing out on every world. On New Gwangju, fighter pilots were preparing for space combat. On New Busan, intelligence officers were studying Kraxan ship designs. On New Andong, workers were loading the last weapons onto transport ships. Admiral Dae-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the fleet assemble. Ship after ship arrived at the rally point, their crews ready for battle. Some were military, vessels that had been hidden for years. Others were civilian ships that had been converted for war in just a few days. Sir, reported Captain Hyojin, we now have 412 ships ready for departure. That includes every available vessel from 16 colonies. What about casualties? Dae-ho asked. He knew that some ships would not be coming home. Medical estimates suggest we should prepare for 20% losses, Hyojin replied quietly. That means we might lose 80 ships and 8,000 crew members. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Everyone knew the risks. The Kraxan Empire had never been defeated in battle. They had destroyed entire fleets and wiped out civilizations. The humans might be flying to their deaths. Sir, said Captain Tae-hyun from the weapons station, the crews are asking about rules of engagement. What do we do if Kraxan ships try to surrender? Admiral Dae-ho thought about the reports of Kraxan atrocities. Species destroyed, worlds burned, billions of innocents killed. The easy answer would be to show no mercy, to treat the Kraxans the way they had treated others. But that would make the humans no better than the monsters they were fighting. We accept all surrenders, he said finally. We treat all prisoners according to the rules of war. We do not become the evil we are fighting. Captain Junwoo, who commanded the Marine forces, raised his hand. What about their ground troops? Intelligence reports say they have been committing atrocities on the worlds they occupy. Same rules apply, Dae-ho replied. We are not going there for revenge. We are going there to stop them from hurting anyone else. The final ships were arriving now. Captain Kwan-ho's stealth vessel, Silent Runner, slipped into formation like a ghost. Captain Min-seo's destroyer squadron took position on the fleet's flanks. Even the medical ships took their places, ready to save lives on both sides of the coming battle. Admiral, Captain Hyojin said, we are receiving a transmission from Earth Command. The message had taken 6 months to reach them, traveling across the vast distances between Earth and the outer colonies. Admiral Deho knew what it would say before he heard it. Fleet Admiral Deho, the recording began. Earth Command has received reports of hostile alien activity in your sector. You are ordered to maintain defensive positions and avoid contact with unknown species. Under no circumstances are you to engage in offensive military action without direct authorization from Earth Command. The message ended. Admiral Deho looked at his officers. By the time Earth Command received his reply and sent new orders, the war would be over one way or another. Log my response, he told the communications officer. Earth Command, this is Admiral Deho. We have received your orders and understand your concerns. However, an innocent species is being exterminated while we wait for authorization. Human lives are not the only lives that matter. We are going to save the Villani, and then we are going to make sure this never happens again. Deho out. He turned to face the main screen, where 412 human ships were waiting for his command. Behind him, his officers were working frantically to coordinate the largest military operation in human history. All ships, this is Admiral Deho, he broadcast to the entire fleet. In a few minutes, we will jump to hyperspace. We are going farther from home than any human has ever gone before. We are going to fight an enemy that has never been defeated. Many of us will not be coming back. He paused, looking at the faces of his bridge crew. These were good people who had volunteered to risk everything for strangers they would never meet. But we are not going there for glory or conquest. He continued. We are going there because innocent people are dying, and no one else will help them. We are going there because it is the right thing to do. We are going there because we are human, and humans do not abandon the innocent. The fleet began to move. 412 ships, carrying the hopes and determination of 16 human worlds. They were farmers and miners, scientists and soldiers united by a simple belief that the strong should protect the weak. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump, Admiral Deho ordered. Destination, Villani space. Mission, end the nightmare. One by one, the human ships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving only empty space behind them. They were going to war against an empire that had conquered half the galaxy to save people they had never seen on worlds they could not pronounce. Tool was the most human thing they had ever done. In the depths of space, the Kraxon Empire continued its work of destruction, unaware that the children of Earth were coming, and they were very, very angry. The small Villani ship drifted through space like a broken bird. Its engines were dead, its hull was cracked, and inside, Ambassador Thelnara was dying. She pressed her thin fingers against the communication panel one more time, sending out the same message she had been broadcasting for 3 days. Please, anyone who can hear this, she whispered into the microphone. My people are being destroyed. The Kraxon Empire came to our world 6 months ago. They said we were weak and did not deserve to live. They have burned our cities and killed our children. We have no weapons to fight them. We are farmers and artists, not soldiers. If anyone in the galaxy has mercy, please help us. The message went out into the darkness, carried by radio waves to distant stars. Thelnara knew it was probably useless. The galaxy was full of species that were stronger than the Villani, but they all feared the Kraxons. Better to let one small species die than risk the anger of the Empire. She looked out the window of her ship at the planet below. It had once been called Talamos, the garden world of her people. Now it was a ball of fire. The Kraxon plasma bombs had turned the forests into ash and the rivers into steam. Nothing lived there anymore. Thelnara remembered her daughter's face. Little Kira had been playing in the flowers when the Kraxon ships arrived. The child had looked up at the sky and asked why the ships were so angry-looking. Thelnara had not known how to answer. Now Kira was dead, along with billions of other Villani. Signal detected, said the ship's computer in its calm voice. Unknown vessel approaching from galactic south. Thelnara's heart jumped. Maybe someone had heard her message after all. She looked at the scanner and saw a single ship moving toward Her. It was small and fast, unlike the massive Kraxan warships. Unknown vessel. This is Ambassador Thel Nara of the Vellani people, she broadcast. Are you here to help us? The reply came in a language she had never heard before, but her ship's translator worked quickly. This is Captain Quan Ho of the human ship Silent Runner. We received your distress call. What is your situation? Human? Thelnara had never heard of this species before. Where do you come from? We come from worlds far from here, the voice replied. We have been watching what the Kraxans are doing. It is not right. How many of your people are still alive? Thelnara felt tears in her eyes. Perhaps 3 million, scattered across 12 refugee ships. The rest are dead. Our worlds are gone. We have nowhere to go. Understood, Captain Quan Ho said. I am sending your location to my fleet command. Help is coming. Fleet command? Thelnara asked. How many ships do you have? There was a pause. Then the human replied, Enough. Far away on a world called New Busan that orbited a yellow star, Fleet Admiral De Ho was reading Captain Quan Ho's report. The human colony world was beautiful, with green mountains and blue oceans that reminded the settlers of their homeland on Earth. But today, Admiral De Ho was not thinking about the beauty of his new world. He was thinking about justice. Captain Hyojin, he said to his intelligence officer, show me everything we know about the Kraxan Empire. The wall screen filled with star maps and ship designs. The Kraxan Empire controlled 43 star systems and had destroyed 28 different species in the past century. They were masters of a kind of warfare that most civilized species could not understand. Total extermination. They do not take prisoners, Captain Hyojin reported. They do not make treaties. When they decide a species is weak, they kill every member of that species. Men, women, children, even the animals on their worlds. How many ships do they have? De Ho asked. Our best estimate is 800 warships, divided into 16 fleets. Each ship carries enough firepower to destroy a city. Admiral De Ho was 55 years old. He had grown up during Earth's resource wars, when nations fought over the last oil and water. He had seen what happened when evil people were allowed to do evil things without anyone stopping them. He had sworn that he would never let it happen again. Send a message to all human colonies, he ordered. Operation Righteous Fury is now active. I want every available ship ready for combat in 72 hours. Captain Hyojin looked worried. Sir, Earth Command has not authorized military action. We could be starting a war that humanity is not ready for. Earth Command is 6 months away by the fastest ship, De Ho replied. By the time they get our message and send a reply, the Vellani will be extinct. Sometimes you have to do what is right, not what is safe. The message went out immediately to all human worlds. On New Seoul, Governor So Young began converting cargo ships into troop transports. On New Tokyo, Captain Min Seo started loading weapons onto her destroyers. On the mining station at New Gangnam, workers began pulling military ships out of hidden storage bays. For 5 years, humanity had been quietly building a fleet. They had watched other species fight and die while they stayed hidden. They had learned from every battle, studied every weapon, planned for the day when they might have to fight for their survival. That day had come, but not in the way they expected. They were not fighting for their own survival. They were fighting for strangers on the other side of the galaxy. Captain Junwoo commanded the human marine forces. He was a veteran of the corporate wars on Mars, where he had learned that the best way to fight bullies was to hit them harder than they expected. Now he was loading his 12,000 Marines onto assault ships. Sir, asked Lieutenant Sang-wook, what do we know about Kraxan ground forces? They are big, strong, and mean, Junwoo replied. They average 3 meters tall and have natural armor, but they have never fought humans before. They do not know that we are meaner. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral De Ho was studying reports from across human space. The response had been incredible. Every colony, every outpost, every mining station was sending ships and crews. Farmers were volunteering to fly cargo ships. Scientists were loading medical supplies. Even children were helping by working in the factories. "Sir," reported Captain Taehyun, "we have 347 ships ready for departure. That includes 12 dreadnoughts, 56 cruisers, and 112 destroyers. What about supplies? We have enough food, fuel, and ammunition for 6 months of combat operations. Dr. Yujin's medical teams are ready for casualties." Admiral Daeho nodded. In just 3 days, humanity had assembled the largest military fleet in their history. Ships that had been scattered across dozens of worlds were now gathering at the edge of human space, preparing for a journey that would take them farther from home than any human had ever traveled. "Admiral," Captain Hyjin said quietly, "are we really going to do this? Fight an empire that has conquered half the galaxy?" Daeho looked at the display showing the Kraxan Empire. It was huge, spreading across the stars like a cancer. For over a century it had grown by destroying the weak and enslaving the survivors. No one had ever seriously challenged it. "Captain," he said, "humans have a saying. All that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. The Vellani are good people. The Kraxans are evil. We are not going to do nothing." He turned to face his officers. These were men and women who had left Earth to build new lives among the stars. They were engineers and farmers, scientists and soldiers. They came from Korea, but they carried the hopes of all humanity. "Signal the fleet," Admiral Daeho ordered. "All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Destination, Vellani space. Mission, end the Kraxan Empire." The human fleet moved out of orbit around New Busan like a school of deadly fish. 347 ships, carrying the dreams and determination of 12 human worlds. They were going to war against an enemy that outnumbered them 3-1, in a part of space they had never seen before, to save people they had never met. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It was the most human thing they could do. In her dying ship above the burned world of Talamos, Ambassador Thelnara received one final message from Captain Kwanho. "Help is coming," the human said. "Hold on for 3 more days. We will not let your people die alone." For the first time in months, Thelnara smiled. She did not know who these humans were, but they were coming. That was enough.